And today I want to talk about the 7 types of sex. Actually, in my course, I teach the 6 types. I teach it like the wives don't like the last 2. And honey, I don't even know. Well, you know, we've done reels on this, but we've never really had conversations about this.
Not really.
Why people stay together for the kids, and it's not what you think. Why men are not leading in their home. I'm Cass.
And I'm Kathryn.
Not so obvious ways to get the sex back.
So when you dated your husband in the beginning, did you ever answer the door with your hair all crazy? We're MorrowMarriage.
Let's flip divorce statistics with the new marriage. All right, MorrowMarriage podcast, where we dive right into our abusive, our toxic, our sexless marriage and all the lessons we learn along the way to save our marriage. And today I want to talk about the 7 types of sex. Actually, in my course, I teach the 6 types. I teach it like the wives don't like the last 2. And honey, I don't even know. Well, you know, we've done reels on this, but we've never really had conversations about this.
Not really.
And so I'm going to add in a 7th one today. That's not in my course. My guys in my program, Marriage Lords, they understand why we don't have a 7th, but I'm going to include it for you guys today because you're not in the program. Okay. So
I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the 7th? I'm excited.
Oh, I think you're going to love the 7th one, and you're going to be so proud of me for not including it in the program. All right. All right. So here we go. Let's dive into it. So the first type of sex is, I'm going to work, by the way, from the top, the extreme awesomeness, and work our way down, because that's obviously why the wives don't like the last 2. Oh, and by the way, guys, maybe Kathryn, you can give us some insight on this, baby kicks, because I'm assuming that women feel a lot of the same ways. I know we get a lot of comments on our social media. What if it's the husband that doesn't want sex and things like that? And I know that's not exactly your realm, but I'd love to hear any perspective or insight for those that listen that might feel like that as we go through. Is that cool?
Yeah, cool.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, baby. Okay, so working our way from top down.
So top means like the best.
I'm gonna call it the best, and this is partly why I would love to hear your perspective, because I think this could be man versus woman kind of thought, right?
Fun one.
Okay, so the top, I would call it crazy. It's like all the adventure stuff. You know, I just saw your Silks picture on the Apple TV, and I'm thinking right away like sex swings and like all the kind of excited different activities you could try. You know, there's the taboo, you know, and I'm just going to say this stuff. I'm not going to confirm or deny whether we do any of this, because that's none of your business, people. All right.
None of your business.
We share enough of our story. But, you know, this for me, when I teach you guys, this would be like the, you know, anal, sex swings, prostate. You're going for cervical orgasms. Like it's all the stuff that's not the normal. Okay. Follow me?
I follow.
Okay. So far, she's just listening. If you're if you're not watching, she is just
waiting to be called upon here for my expertise.
For your expertise, and you're an expert in the subject. So, if you think about that being the top, the reason why that's at the top is simple to me. Like, if you're safe enough in your marriage and you're passionate, you're emotionally connected, your intimacy is there on all the different levels. Of course, you guys are opening up to trying new things. Now, this you must be careful. Because if you think about sometimes, especially men, I'm going to use anal. It's an easy example. If you use anal as an example where a man just, we want to do it sometimes, right? Well, it doesn't mean that you're there just because you want it and you're having all these other levels of sex. But also at the same time, it doesn't mean you're not there if something like that doesn't satisfy your partner. But the point is, there could be a conversation. You're open to those things. And this is not like when I say, don't talk about sex. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
For a moment, I thought you were talking to the viewers. I forgot we're not live. So I almost didn't answer you. Yes.
Gotcha.
Sense.
Okay. So below that, you're going to have what we'd say is carnal. This would be like passion. Like you're just dying to have each other. There's not much to it, really. It's like, obviously today we need it now. Right? Or
like passion fueled,
more animalistic. Right? And then below that, we're gonna have quickies. I know you say that makes you feel like a woman, my woman, when you want me like that. Right?
I think any woman, when you can turn your husband on that fast and get the job done that fast, you feel powerful and you feel like, yeah, that's my man and I'm his woman.
Yeah,
and this is a common thing with women. And also, if I can add to that, depending on what stage of life you're in, like there's all, like he's talking about all different kinds of sex. Sometimes you want to be with your husband, but you know, you're like, we have 3 kids under 4. So if we want to sneak off, it's going to be a quickie because we can't leave our kids alone for longer than a couple of minutes.
Same with on dates. Like obviously you're not going for a big
if
hour-long rendezvous on a date when you're out in public. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for men as well, like there's times when I'm like, I need you right now. Right. And so those moments aren't the ones where I want to like spend a whole lot of time. Right.
Yeah. That's why it's called a quickie.
Called quickie. Yeah. Okay. Now below quickie, then we're going to go to committed. Now committed, we really have to talk about. I think this is probably the most important rung.
And the most misunderstood.
Why don't you start? Because you've got something.
Yeah. So committed sex doesn't mean obligatory. It means you're committed to each other, not you're committed to doing the deed, doing the job, getting your husband off. You're not committed to the act. You're committed to each other and being together. You're committed to being husband and wife. And I mean, I don't have to tell you guys this, but sex is something that you only do with your partner. You're not doing that with anything else because you're committed to your partner. So I think committed sex, some people, especially people that watch and listen to us, they misunderstand committed sex. I know I did because I was doing it as a job. It was the obligatory.
Don't give away the next one.
It was the obligatory.
Yeah.
I'm his wife, so I should. And I actually believe that. So we could do a whole other episode on that. I'm his wife, so I should. And that's something that your husband needs. And as his wife, you should be fulfilling those needs. But
as a husband, you should want her to want more than just a
yes, and he should be filling your emotional needs as well. There's so much that goes into that. But yeah, the committed sex I think is really misunderstood because, well, I think it gets confused with the next rung of the ladder here that you're going to
why don't we blend them? Because I think this might be easier for a lot of people to understand. So the next one down would be job sex, committed sex, checking off the to-do list. You're pouty, you're frustrated, you're angry, so your partner feels like they have to do it for you, right? And so that is where the gray area comes in. So for example, and also we can add fear into that too, right? So the reason why is because quite honestly, a lot of the sex that we had prior in the bad years was out of fear. So it started with a lot of wanting, right? So it was committed, and it was also the other top ones. And then it went to, a lot of job, especially when it was like, I was so insecure, I needed her 3-4 times a day. So that's a lot of job, obviously. And the commitment starts to, be a bit of a burden. And then after a while, with all the problems, well, of course, she's not necessarily wanting me, but then she's going to get upset and afraid if I get upset and angry, right? And so there's these two really, really can blend together and confuse so many people.
Even if you're not careful.
Because
there's nothing wrong with committed sex. You should be committed to each other, committed to meeting each other's emotional needs, physical needs. You should be committed. Job sex is not. It's a form of committed sex because you're committed to doing it just like you're committed to buying groceries. But like when you buy groceries, I guess you could actually look at like that as a commitment because you want to fuel your family. You want to buy them what they need rather than seeing it as, an annoyance. So it's the mindset. The difference between committed sex and job sex is the mindset, because when you have the right mindset that you want to be together with your partner, that you want to have that level of intimacy, that's a lot different than saying, I want to do it to manage my partner's emotions. I want to do it because I feel like he needs me to do it and I don't want to do it. There's a difference in the way that you can think about it. And that's why the two can be confusing and kind of
especially like you'll tell me about some of your clients sometimes, and they want to be there for their husband. And so it's a gray area because they're also not getting their needs met. So they're almost sort of giving too much away in essence.
Well, yeah, sometimes the wives that I work with, it's rare because oftentimes they'll be more in my position that I was in where it's a job.
Right.
And because of, the relationship is falling apart. But it's rare. I would say there's a small percentage of women in my program that they really want to be there for their husband and they actually really desire their husband, but their husband isn't meeting their emotional needs. And so they're out of codependency. The only way they feel connected, and I had this problem as well, the only way I felt connected to you, the only way these women feel connected is through physical intimacy.
Right.
And that can be really dangerous because, like I use the word codependent. The definition of codependence is that you are valuing someone else's well-being ahead of your own. and you're sacrificing your own well-being. Now, sacrificing your own well-being is not necessarily a bad thing. We talk about sacrifice all the time, but well-being is the key point. You don't want to sacrifice your core values and, you know, your emotional and physical well-being, because you can't you have to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Right.
Like, you have to take care of yourself.
And the flip side would be, I mean, I teach men not to go for that. And there's a dangerous area when your wife is trying to connect with you and be there for you, where you don't want to reject your wife, but at the same time, you don't want to take this, you don't have the desire, right? And I feel like it's quite a challenge. It's quite a challenge for a lot of men. So I think that you just have to tread very carefully when you're thinking about the intent to be committed, and then what does that look like if your partner is committing because of your emotions, like you said, right?
Which is what I did, yeah.
Right. Or because of, you know, the actual intent to connect, which you've also done, right? I mean, you're going through a period right now where you've been really sick for a long time. We're trying to figure it out.
So sometimes it's still committed sex.
That's
and
right.
that's why I say there's nothing wrong with it, because if you get complacent, then you're not even having committed sex, and then you're sexless.
That's right. Yeah. And if you don't know from us by now, that's what I define sexless as, is 6 months or less,
6 months,
6 months or more, sorry, without sex, or if it's just job sex, pity sex, fear sex, you know, all these kinds of things, because that's not real connected, and it's not higher.
That's right. But committed sex counts as sex. If you're having committed sex and you're being intentional and you want to connect and you want to love your husband or your wife, you know, vice versa, that counts as sex.
Yeah, there are
so
times
you might not be at the top two levels. Like he said, I'm in this sickness that I've had for a year and a half. So, you know, it's not very often that we have the top rung of the ladder. So,
fair, yeah.
You know, it's just
but
like that takes a lot.
But there are times when you like, I want you right now, and it's actually more for connecting with me and being committed, right? So you just have to be careful. This would never have happened in the past, because it would have been all fear-based, or it would have been all managing emotions, which is the worst. Or men, you're taking, especially men, just, well, no, I mean, even the one or two clients I heard you talk about, like, you're just taking it to connect when it's not actually connecting, and you got to be careful, because that sends you down the negative path. Can
I say one more thing?
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that can send you down a negative path is if you feel that you should be having sex at, you know, if you follow his theory with these different levels, if you feel that you need to be having the crazy sex, that's the top one, right? And the carnal sex to have a good sex life, you don't. And if you're coming from a really bad place with sex, where there was, like, we had sexual abuse, I have sexual trauma from my husband, you don't just and then of course there's been babies and sicknesses and all kinds of things. You don't just jump to the top rung of the ladder. And so you don't need to compare yourself to anybody else. You just need to have a relationship with your partner where you can talk openly about it. So it can be really, I think what I was going to say, it can be really dangerous. It can be, and really unhealthy to think that you need to be at the top rung of the ladder, or even the second rung of the ladder. If that happens, great. But if you're not there yet, don't force yourself. Don't make yourself feel guilty about it, because you can get there, but you will never get there if you put pressure on yourself.
100%. And that ties in with society shaming men and women for sex, for, you know, all that's a whole nother topic we can go down, but I think it's a really valuable point. Also, don't compare yourself to what you think everybody's doing, because most people aren't actually having a passionate sex life anyway. Think about what you two will blend on as you become more connected. Right? There's going to be lots of different levels. Just use kids for an example. We might be super wild, hot for each other all day, but it turned out to be a quickie because the kids were up late. You know, like, who knows? Or maybe it's not even happening today, and it's better tomorrow. Like, you just have to be really realistic, guys. There's still life. Okay. The next one down would be the pity, job, fear, which we already have covered. Now we kind of blended those all together. And so the one that I don't teach in my course, and there's a really big reason for it, is angry sex, make-up sex. I don't include it because I think that's the stupidest fucking thing on the planet. I know, because we tried to connect a lot. We tried to use that as, we should always come together to connect. We tried to make it committed sex. And I think at the end of the day, and we've never talked about this, so I'm very interested in your opinion, but I think at the end of the day, it was one of the dumbest things we could do.
Well, because can I interject?
Yes, please.
It puts a Band-Aid on the other stuff that's happening, or it sweeps it under the rug. And I know I just used two cliches there, but that's what it does. So if you had a big fight about parenting and you guys didn't talk for 24 hours, and then you come together and you connect physically, okay, you know what, there's some value in that. But then did you talk about the parenting? No, you didn't. Or did you talk about the fact that your husband cheated on you and you get in a big fight. Maybe he went out and he did something stupid again because he got drunk and he cheated on you, and you give it up again the next day because you want to connect. Okay, so that is a connection point. But did you talk about the cheating? Are you brave enough to talk about the conflict that you had the day before? Are you brave enough and mature enough to have
The hard conversation.
the hard conversations? So it's great that you can connect physically. It's so important that you can do it, but you can't do it to escape the other stuff that's bad. You can't do
Correct.
it to you feel good. It changes you hormonally, it changes you emotionally, and then you guys just feel like you're good and you just wait until the next conflict. It does not work that way.
It doesn't work. And if we're being really, really honest, the amount of times that we tried to band-aid everything, go for it, and then stop in the middle, usually that would have been me and my dumbass self, but screaming at each other about the fight, you actually end up disconnecting more in a lot of cases.
Lots more.
And I know that won't be all of our listeners or watchers. I know that a lot of you will just make it through that moment, but then go back to what Kathryn just said. Are you actually solving the actual problem?
And if you're a woman and you're using sex to get past something that happened, like I did, I would use sex as a tool to be able to reconnect with my husband. And like he said, we didn't deal with anything. And so sometimes we could be in the middle of the act. And he said screaming at each other, but what he meant was him screaming at me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So he would literally stop and freak out in the middle of what we were doing. And one time I remember he threw a laundry basket across the room. There was a lot more things that we've been more intimate that I don't feel comfortable talking about. But if you're doing that as a woman, it's not making it better. Your partner might not be reacting as extremely as he did and, freaking out in the middle of it and walking away from you. But if you're not fixing it, he's probably harboring some of that negativity and it's going to blow back up again.
You're enabling the bad behavior, really. I want to end it, but I want to say one more thing real quick. And that is that, in the beginning, I said wives hate the last three. Well, the reality is I've learned from 4,000 guys in 22 months that men hate the last three also.
What were the last three again?
So
the bottom was makeup,
the job, sex,
job, and committed.
No, yeah. So the last three would be job, sex, and then below that we're gonna have the pity, the frustration, fear, managing emotions, and then below that we're gonna have that makeup, sex. I think that men hate them all too. I mean, I haven't heard a lot about men saying they hate makeup sex because typically the passion can be there. You just have to really use your head and understand where you're going.
The top head.
The top head. That's right. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.